Jordan Love is proving that his struggles against pressure were explained simply. He was hurt. But that's not the only reason this team is now beating the blitz regularly.
You are Locked On Packers, your daily Green Bay Packers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Packers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I'm Peter Bukowski, and I cover the Packers for The Leap, a newsletter I would love for you to subscribe to. Follow me on Twitter, Peter_Bukowski. Follow the podcast on Twitter, Locked On Packers. Like us on Facebook. Subscribe to the podcast, iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts. Wherever you find podcasts, you will find Locked On Packers, the #1 Packers podcast on the internet. And the show for fans who know what happened, they want to know why and how. Thanks to everyone who makes Locked On Packers their first listen every day. We hope you like starting your day with us as much as we like starting our day with you. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Jordan Love's issues against pressure has been a topic of conversation all year, and my insistence for weeks has been that this is really just about his injury. And since the bye, and we've talked about this basically every week since the bye, but now we're talking about a bigger sample. We're talking about, a month of games, not just, this game, that's one nice game. We try not to do that here. Jordan Love against the blitz in his last 5 games, 30 of 43 for 463 and 4 touchdowns. That is a passer rating of 136. This from Zach Jacobson over at Packer Report. Against Seattle, a chaos defense. Mike McDonald from that Ravens defense. They beguiled quarterbacks with the blitz. This is one of the best pressure teams in the league, not just because of what the head coach can do as the de facto defensive play caller, but because they have guys like Leonard Williams playing at a high level, Boye Mafe, Uchenna Nwosu, Byron Murphy, a really deep and dynamic front. Jordan Love had all day to throw. So there is the Jordan Love piece of this where, yes, it's clear. Because when you go back and look at 2023, he was really good in the aggregate over the course of the season when teams tried to blitz him, when teams pressured him. All of the numbers said in every cohort from a clean pocket, all that stuff, he was good. And in fact, when he was on his Toyotathon run in the second half of the year, he was the most unstoppable quarterback in the league when teams tried to blitz him. He had every answer. And again, in this game against the Seahawks, we saw a team, and we're going to see, presumably the Saints are going to try and heat him up a little bit. We know what the Vikings are going to try and do with all the simulated pressures and zero looks that Brian Flores is going to throw at a quarterback. In the postseason, teams are going to test Jordan Love because what they're going to try and do is they're doing this calculation. When they watch this team on tape, they go, well, this running game is really hard to deal with. And man, when they get into play action and they take their shots, they're pretty near impossible to deal with. And Jordan Love is so good, but we think we can get him. If we can just get him to make 1 mistake, 2 mistakes over the course of the game, then that is our way to slow down this offense. It has not worked against almost any defense in the league this year. At some point, this Packers team has made it productive. Like they've made their productivity. The really clumsy way of saying that. But they've been productive. There it is. Against the best defenses in the league. So what teams are going to say is, we're going to try and speed you up and try and create opportunities for you to turn the ball over. The thing is Jordan Love has been lighting the blitz up since he's been healthy because he just is that kind of player. He can create off structure. He can make throws outside of the normal rhythm of a play, off platform, atypical base, arm angle, drop the slot or whatever you want to, whatever buzz phrase you want to use. He doesn't have to have it clean to make you pay. That's one piece. And that's important, of course. But what struck me watching on Sunday night was not just what Jordan Love was able to do, and that's an important piece, right? I was watching the Packers dog walk this Seahawks offensive line. Brenton Cox and Rashawn Gary and Carl Brooks and Devontae Wyatt and Kenny Clark and the blitzing linebackers, Edge Cooper and Quay Walker and all these guys just create misery for Geno Smith and then Sam Howell, who is already has some of the worst feel in the pocket I have ever seen from a quarterback in the NFL. I mean, I don't understand it. He got sacked on a rollout where he's got two guys chasing him. He could just throw the ball away, and I don't know what he's doing. Takes a sack. Okay, fine. You don't really get a lot of credit for that. But this Seahawks offensive line has invested heavily in the offensive line, draft picks, etc. And it just doesn't matter. Geno Smith clearly covers for flaws in personnel and in play calling too. But that offensive line is just not it. The Packers, on the other hand, they are the most blitzed offense in the league. Derek Harher, also from Packer Report, had this stat. The most blitzed offense in the league, 37% of passing snaps have featured a blitz, yet they have allowed the second fewest snaps or sacks of any team. Let me say that again. They are the most blitzed team in the league, but the Packers are the second least sacked team in the league. Now that's Jordan Love, who avoids sacks at an elite rate, and that has been true going back to his time at Utah State. This is something we do not stress enough in quarterback evaluations. It is one of those things where when you go back and look, a player like Justin Fields just never got better at it. Caleb Williams has so far not been able to get much better at it. If you have bad feel in the pocket, you have bad situational and spatial awareness, it's just tough to get better at. There is, I believe deeply, there is an innate feel to being back there. And Tom Brady mentioned it on the broadcast the other week. He said, I never understood guys who said they couldn't feel what I felt. When I could feel a guy coming from, he beats the left tackle and he's coming from the blind side. Quarterbacks talk about being able to feel that pressure. Well, some quarterbacks do. Not all quarterbacks do. And then there are others who can feel it and still go, I think I can make a play. That can be Jordan Love, right? But he hasn't had to do that as much this year since he's been healthy, because this offensive line has been so good. The emergence of Sean Ryan, Ty Dunn wrote a great piece about Sean Ryan. We talked to Ty this week. And Josh Myers is playing fine. You're getting high-level play from Elton Jenkins. Rasheed Walker and Zach Tom, one of the best tackle duos in the league. In pure dropback situations, early in the season, there were issues. Whether it was Malik Willis, whether it was Jordan Love, there were issues passing off stunts and dealing with some of the pressures. Like that Vikings game could not have come at a worse time because Jordan Love could not move. You could not get to some of your under center runs, which means you couldn't get to your under center play actions, and you could not keep some of that stuff at bay from Minnesota. But they were also just getting clean shots, free runs at the quarterback because this group was just not passing things off well. Part of that was a continuity problem. This five had not played together. They have now played the entire season together, and they are one of two or three teams to not have to change their offensive line over the course of the season. That is immensely important. Ask the Minnesota Vikings. Ask the Chicago Bears. Ask the Seattle Seahawks. Ask a lot of the teams, frankly, in the NFC who are not as good on offense as the Green Bay Packers because they don't have as good an offensive line as the Green Bay Packers. What do the best teams in the NFC right now have in common? The Packers, the Eagles, the Lions. You want to throw the Vikings in there? Be my guest. It's that their offensive line rocks. You want to add in the Rams? Why are they suddenly playing like a really dangerous team in the NFC? Because their offensive line is healthy. They are moving people. They are protecting Matthew Stafford. Why has Tampa Bay found balance in their run game? Because their offensive line is playing at a much higher level. They're getting better productivity there. It is such an important piece. You cannot compete for a Super Bowl if you can't block. It's why I've never bought into any of the narratives around the Packers. Oh, they didn't draft a number one wide receiver or a first round wide receiver. That does not mean they have not invested heavily in the offense. First round, second round, third round offensive linemen. How many teams don't have 5? The Packers have 6 or 7. Jordan Morgan, a first round pick at offensive line, and he doesn't even have to play for this team. That is a luxury most teams do not have. It is the kind of luxury with the kind of depth that could carry the team in the postseason. All right, our pal Lily Zhao joins us to talk a little would you rather in the NFC playoff race. That's next on Locked On Packers. Today's episode brought to you by our friends at Game Time. Game Time is focused on togetherness this holiday season. That means when you bring people together at live events, the experience is that much better, and it's the perfect gift. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your live event even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. Curation makes it easier to save more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. Great opportunity. You get the family coming into town. Let's go see a game. Let's go have some fun. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time because you don't want to be stuck with something that is way more expensive than you thought it was going to be or is not the tickets, frankly, that you thought they were going to be. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Today's episode also brought to you by our friends at FanDuel. Get ready to tackle the playoff action in the NFL with our friends at FanDuel. Packers, I tried to tell you that this was a nice spot for the Packers against the Seahawks. I hope you made some money on it. Hope you got in on that 2.5. The Packers 13.5 point favorites at home on Monday night against the New Orleans Saints. They are minus 900 on the money line. My word. Well, right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $150 in bonus bets if you win. So, yeah, sure, minus 900 on a $5 bet might not be the best option in a different scenario. But if you're going to get $150 in bonus bets, if the Packers hit that on the money line, that seems like a pretty juicy opportunity for you to get that $150. That's FanDuel.com. Never waste a hunch and make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Coming off one of the best victories of the season for the Green Bay Packers, we have Lily Zhao from Fox 6 in Milwaukee to play a little game with us. But first, we must answer the question, Zhao, you doing?
Peter, I am doing well. It is crazy that we are almost at the close to the end of the calendar year. Time has flown by. I don't know where time has gone, but it's been just a joy being on the show with you. And it was a fun weekend as well. So I am doing swell. Is that how you doing?
I'm good. These night games take it out of me. It's a lot late nights, but burning the midnight oil is part of the gig here, and it's kind of, there's the excitement. The problem is trying to sleep after you get all that stuff done, and you're excited. And it's like, how am I going to ever fall asleep before 2 a.m.? And the answer is I don't. So the Packers get this win. They are now all but assured of being in the NFC playoffs, which makes the next 3 weeks kind of weird. And that I think in some ways takes the juice out of what we have to talk about. So I want to play a little game with you, and then we'll get to some storylines coming out of the game. But I want to start with the game because I want to have some fun. So this is Would You Rather. So I'm going to ask you some either or kind of statements, and I want to know which one you would rather. Okay.
Mhm.
Would you rather face an NFC North opponent in the postseason early or late?
That's a good question. I would say at this point, it would be probably more exciting to do it late for the thrill of it. Because when you look at the seeding, at this point, you're not playing an NFC North opponent in the wild card round.
Right.
It stands. And I think that a divisional game against whoever it may be, obviously Lions, would be thrilling. So I'm going to go that route. That being said, will they, if they can get past the wild card, would they be still playing an NFC North team if they don't get bounced? Not the Packers, their opponent.
Well, and so this is why I think this is an interesting question. It's almost certainly not going to happen in round one. Like the Packers would have to fall to the 7. The Vikings or Lions would have to be the 2.
Yep.
That would take some weird machinations to end up finishing that way. But I just thought, okay, this is an interesting thought experiment. I wonder if you're better off playing the Lions sooner, just because of the injuries on this team. Like, get them now while the getting is good. Because who knows, maybe Carlton Davis can come back for the divisional round or something like that. And, that makes it a little tougher. This is why the game is fun, because I don't know that there's a right answer here, but it is one of those questions. Okay. In that vein though, Lily, would you rather play the Vikings or the Lions?
It's crazy to say. I probably would play the Lions because of the injury reason. Yeah. I think, again, you saw them against the Bills. Again, the Bills are an electric offense with Josh Allen, who most likely will win the MVP. So they're at, this upper echelon level of offensive efficiency right now. But that being said, the Lions just lost 3 more defenders in that game. 2 out for the season. Like you mentioned, Carlton Davis could potentially come back late if they make a run that deep. So I would say at the moment, play the Lions and take advantage of a depleted defense. I know that was the goal the second time around, and they didn't get done. But you're hoping that in the playoffs, that's something that changes. So I would say the Lions for sure first.
Okay, this is actually a relevant question to what could happen for Green Bay, what the most likely outcome is. Would you rather go to LA to play in the first round or Tampa Bay?
At this moment in time, I'd say Tampa Bay. I feel like the Rams behind Matthew Stafford, they're playing inspired football. They look like a much better unit as a whole. So I would say take the risk with Baker Mayfield, play the Bucs, and that is, in my opinion, right now, a quote-unquote more winnable game for the Packers because this Rams team, I think, is going to be really tough.
I got to be honest, neither of those seem any fun. Like both of those teams are really scary right now. I'm so impressed with what the Bucs have been able to do. Baker Mayfield, look at him go. Like he's not just the Joe Barry merchant, it turns out.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's really found his home in Tampa Bay. He's really improved. But that being said, I still think that the Rams are going to be more scary. I don't know. That's just my opinion. So I feel like this Bucs-Packers matchup would be really fun. It'd be a lot of high-flying offense for sure. But that being said, it's not going to be an easy out with either team. That's for sure. But I would say Packers-Bucs would be fun.
Little NFC Central throwback, a little Joe Barry revenge game. I don't know. There's plenty of storylines in that one. Would you personally rather go to LA or Tampa in January?
Well, that's tough. I mean, LA would be fun. LA would be fun because I haven't been to LA or Tampa, so I can't say I've been to one or the other. But
there's not really that much to do in Tampa, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
Especially if you're not into steakhouses or strip clubs.
I mean, I like steakhouses.
Listen, whatever you want to do on a Friday night, that is up to you.
Yeah.
I don't know what Fox is going to reimburse you for, but we'll see, I guess. Okay. Would you rather have? Okay. Would you rather have Nick Sirianni or Liam Cohen in a playoff game? Would you rather face one? Like, which of those coaches you want to have? Would you rather acquire, be on your side?
Oh, be on our side.
Yeah.
Fascinating. I would say
it's basically a way of saying which one do you think is better?
That's a good question. Well, you know what? I feel like a Nick Sirianni would be a fun addition, quirky addition.
I like it. He's the winningest coach currently active.
Listen, you got to play to your strengths.
But like, what's crazy is I feel like he's maybe like the 8th best coach in the NFC. So this is why this is a funny question. And the Eagles may have to make this decision in the offseason. They may be like, hey, Liam Cohen's going to get a head coaching job. Should we just
absolutely.
Sirianni? I don't know. Like, I don't know what we're going to do here. Okay. That was fun. I'm glad we did it. Let's talk about the Seahawks game. I wanted to switch it up here. And part of this is because Lily and we talked about this before we came on the air. The next 3 weeks, like there's not really a ton. Once you get the one win, and the Packers can clinch this on Monday against the Saints, once you get that one win, I don't really know what you do the rest of the way. You and I talked last week about some things where we felt like they needed to get better. There's always, coach is always going to say, I know we can improve on this, and this. But how would you, like, let's say they beat the Saints, and they can't take that for granted, right? In the NFL, if that happens, you're going to get beat. But let's say they beat the Saints. How do you approach the final? It's 2 weeks. Like, how do you approach the final 2 weeks here?
Well, first of all, I think they approach it as beat the Vikings because who knows? Maybe that top seed is in play that late in the season, and maybe the Vikings are going for the number 1 spot there. So your job there is to prevent that from happening. So that could be a very fun week. What was it? 17, yeah. 17 matchup. And
18-week schedule has totally screwed me up.
My brain's like, what week is it? But that would potentially be a really fun matchup for the Packers to prevent that from happening. So I think for them, what I want to see against the Saints is play 4 quarters of football. I think that's really been their issue this season, is they haven't played a full 60 minutes of just dominant football. They kind of did. They got there against their last opponent, but they just couldn't play a full 60 minutes. And so I want to see that continue against the Saints. If you get that done, I just want to see them prove that they can hang with an elite NFC opponent in the Vikings and try and beat them. And then, we'll see what happens week 18 against the Bears. But at this point, I want to see, can you compete with Minnesota? I know they're going to be, the Packers, hopefully a playoff in team by then, but can you hang with Minnesota if there's something on the line there in week 17? That's what I want to see.
All right, we dig more into Packers, Seahawks. Look forward a little bit here on Locked On Packers with Lily Zhao. It's that time of year. The college football playoff is back, and with the newly expanded 12-team format, it's guaranteed to be bigger and better than ever, bringing you all the hard-hitting and high-flying excitement that you love. TNT Sports coverage of the college football playoff begins December 21st, starting with the college football playoff kickoff show presented by AT&T at 11 a.m. Eastern, leading into the first matchup. The SMU Mustangs battling the Penn State Nittany Lions at noon. Then the Clemson Tigers look to upset the Texas Longhorns in a showdown at 4 Eastern. Don't miss a moment of the action. Watch the college football playoff presented by Allstate live on TNT, True TV, TBS, and Max. There will almost certainly be something on the line for Minnesota in terms of playoff seeding. We will see if there's something on the line for the Packers in terms of playoff seeding. I do wonder, too. I think back to 2010 when the Bears had their playoff seeding wrapped up. They were going to get a bye, and they could have kept the Packers out in Week 17 at Lambeau Field. They played their guys rather than sit them, but laid an egg, did not play well. And that's being uncharitable. The Packers had to hang on and scratch and fight to win that game. But they didn't keep the Packers out of the playoffs. And the Packers go in and beat them in their house in the NFC Championship game. I wonder if keeping the Bears out of the playoffs would have been a sufficient motivating factor for the Packers. Like, how do you think Matt LaFleur would have wanted to handle that? Like, they're playing their guys against the Bears, right? At the end, even if it means nothing to them.
I think so. And again, I can't speak to what they're going to do, but I believe that they would play at least for a half, they would play their guys. I can't imagine they would say, Jordan Love, all the starters, guaranteed sitting out week 18, Malik Willis, you're the starter against Chicago. I can't see that happening. It's a divisional.
They might win anyway with Malik Willis, by the way.
Right, at this point, which is great for the Packers. But I can't imagine a scenario where it's week 18, Lambeau Field, regular season finale against the Chicago Bears, that they would sit Jordan Love and the starters for the entire game, at least. So I would say they play their starters and then see what happens from there. But I know there's always a risk to injury, and you don't want that to happen. But at this point, you're hoping that it doesn't, and they just go out there and play efficient in Chicago. And then that brings your momentum going into the postseason, that you're playing really good football and you don't lay an egg against a divisional opponent.
Yeah, the Packers have done it a couple different ways over the years. I don't know that any of them have worked better than others, frankly. I don't think 2021 is an indictment of playing. They sat Aaron Rodgers and the starters in the second half of that game. I don't know that they would have played better if those guys sit the whole game or what. Maybe it would have gone better because David Bakhtiari got hurt in that game. Maybe he plays, and who knows. This Seahawks game, it was funny to hear Chris Collinsworth tell us that Matt LaFleur told them, big game of telephone, I guess, that they wanted to come out and set the tone with Josh Jacobs, that this is part of how they view their identity as an offense. And it struck me that it's exactly the kind of thing that they're going to have to go do in the postseason, because they're going to have to go on the road probably every week, outside of like craziness happening. And that they're kind of preparing for that life. And I thought to get that sort of statement was pretty huge for this team. That being said, were you surprised, like the level to which the Packers came out and just kind of kicked the ass of the Seahawks?
I was surprised in the first half for sure. I know they had preached getting out to a fast start, and I love the fact that they won the coin toss and they elected to receive. We've seen that kind of be a thing with the Packers. And what do? They go right down the field and drive the ball down Seattle's throats behind Josh Jacobs. 9 total touches on that opening drive of 10, total plays. So I thought that was
eight to start the game. Crazy.
Correct. It was the Josh Jacobs drive and the first 2 drives. I mean, he just was running it down their throats. And granted, give Seattle credit, they made, the right adjustments after the half, and they were more effective stopping him on the ground. And that's when Jordan Love's arm comes into play. But I really do like the fact that Matt LaFleur knows that their identity is and will be running the football behind Josh Jacobs, and establishing the run, as you know, can lead to a lot of great stuff if you can do that. But it's what do you do in the second half if teams like Seattle find a way to kind of contain your run game? What do you do then? And can you be more consistent if your run game is contained in the second half? So we'll see how that rolls around. But I do like the fact that they know their identity is running the football, and they went out and they proved they can start fast. And scoring on all 4 drives in the first half was great to see.
Against the defense that the last month has been as good as any team in the league by pick a metric, like by all of them. Last thing here, we can't get out of this discussion without talking about 56. Edgerrin Cooper was outside of his mind in this game. It is something that we have seen in flashes. I can't remember a defender having a game like this for the Packers, a rookie defender. I mean, frankly, there are not that many performances of a defender at all having a game like this. Is this kind of just as simple as when he's out there, this defense can be really, really good?
Absolutely. I think when he's in there, you see the best version of the Packers defense. Obviously, you'd be way better with Jair back there in the secondary. But
which we do think is going to happen at some point.
Correct. But I will say when Edgerrin Cooper is in there, this is the best version of the Packers defense. You see the speed he flashes. You see his intelligence, his eyes on the football and the quarterback, and his just ability to be in the right place at the right time. When you look at the stats, I felt like they were a lot lower, in my opinion, than when you watched him live on TV. I'm like, only 7 total tackles. I thought he had double digits. He had a sack, couple tackles for loss, the interception. I mean, the kid was everywhere. And it was just so fun to see. And I think, again, he's just a rookie at this point, so he's going to get better. But I think his contribution in the middle of the field with his defense is when they thrive the most, and he really balled out against Seattle.
He did. Hopefully we'll get to see a part 2. He's got to stay healthy. This has been the thing for him. Missed time in training camp. I think that set him behind. He could have been in line for even more snaps had he been able to stay healthy. So he's got to stay on the field for this Packers team. And hopefully we're talking about another impressive performance against the Saints next week. That will change our schedule, Lily. We will announce those changes when we figure out all the schedules. It's a holiday week, so a lot of stuff that we got to figure out next week. But we will still have you on the show. As always, we would not miss a week during the season of Zhao you doing. We appreciate you as always, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Peter.
All right, thanks to Lily for joining the show. Awesome to talk with her. More to come this week as we get you set for Packers Saints, a crossover coming your way. We also, Evan Williams, making his return to the program to talk about a big win over the Seahawks, to talk about everything that we need to catch up on with him over the last few weeks, and get us ready for Packers Saints and this playoff push for Green Bay. Follow me on all the social medias, on Twitter, on Blue Sky, on Instagram, on TikTok. I'm not on TikTok, but Locked On Packers certainly is, with all the clips and all the fun stuff that people on TikTok do. And also, of course, wherever you find podcasts, go subscribe over there. And the YouTube page. We will be live again on Monday evening. It's a late one. Primetime matchup. Get a big dub. Come hang with us after the show so you can stay locked on Packers.